year was 1939, and Great Britain was facing one of the hardest economies the world had ever seen, the Great Depression. It affected Britain everywhere, even Manchester, which happens to be the home of our interviewee, Norman Bates. The mood in England at this time was sad and tragic, and what was on the horizon seemed much worse.
Prior to 1939, September 39, a year before that, there was a conference in Munich with Hitler and Neville Chamberlain, the Prime Minister of England, and Mussolini and the French president. I've forgotten his name. They had a conference in Munich, and Neville Chamberlain came back to the conference and said, "Peace in our time." Well, and what happened, the Germans moved into Rhineland, and that was a result of a plebiscite they had in Rhineland. And they were welcomed into Austria. But what caused the war was they moved into Poland on the 1st of September. And so the British and the French declared war against Germany.
This new war would set back the economy even further, but hopes remained high. The propaganda was as strong as ever, and the people seemed willing.
And the mood in England before that time was that they were expecting this. So it wasn't a shock, it was expected. And I think generally the mood was that we should declare war against Germany.
Yeah, so they agreed with that.
But against that there was a recollection of World War I. And they didn't want war at all. They wanted it solved without going to war. But they expected war, so it wasn't a shock. The mood was that, this is how I saw it, the mood was, we don't want war, but we've got to do something.
Talking about going off to war was one thing, but this war was different than all the others. The weapons were deadlier, the casualties were greater, and nobody felt safe. Not even a year after the war, Paris had fallen to Germany, and this left Britain vulnerable for attack. And in the same year, Winston Churchill had become the new Prime Minister of Britain after Neville Chamberlain had resigned. He was one of the greatest wartime leaders of his generation and gave Britain the morale boost that they so desperately needed. But sadly, Churchill could not stop the inevitable bombings that the Germans would eventually commit on Britain that would change its face forever. The destroyed buildings and the destroyed landscapes would cost billions of dollars in repair and would set back the economy even further. But there was a way to preserve lives during these air raids.
Did the people next door have an Anderson shelter?
Anderson shelter, yes.
And your dad wouldn't have one?
He didn't. This was something that we were provided with by the government. An air raid shelter, an Anderson shelter. This was erected in your backyard.
These Anderson shelters were small, but they sure got the job done. However, the Anderson shelters weren't the only things that protected the civilians.
We were issued with gas masks. Because I remember the first day I went to work, I didn't take my gas mask with me. And they sent me home to pick up my gas mask, take it to work.
It seemed as if every inhabitant of Britain had a gas mask, and they wore it when they were told to do so. But the gas masks did more than just keep civilians safe. Soldiers wore them in combat, and it kept them safe, for the most part. Both sides of the war lost thousands of soldiers daily due to bullets, explosives, and some even from bomber planes.
And I joined the RAF in June of 41. I enlisted when I was single I 18, but then I finished my training and sent me to Bomber Command.
And soon enough, the war was over. Germany had seen defeat for a second time, and it was a beautiful day in Britain.
And it took me 4 months to get a job. I finally got a job as a radio mechanic at Heathrow Airport in London. Bomber crews were not popular because of what they did.
They were needed.
So it says there they were in the shadows for 70 years.
Is there anything you'd like to share with like our generation about the war or what it was like?
Or, yeah, don't have any more.
Yeah.
It seems to me that we never learn our lesson. The human race never learns its lesson. Vietnam War was just one big mistake. The Iraq one was another one. Why don't we learn not to go and bomb people and kill them?